Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we've got this really incredible collection of source materials. We're going to use them to do a kind of autopsy on institutional silence.
That's a great way to put it. Our mission here is to understand how a community, in this case it's a small, fictional southern county, how it actively works to bury a violent truth.
And we're not just looking at what happened, but the actual mechanics of it.
Exactly. The rules, the paperwork, the polite language they use to basically enforce amnesia. And on the other side, the strategies people use to fight back and get the truth on the record.
So the whole story really kicks off with well, it's a literal collision of lines on a map. The State Highway Department sends in this young surveyor, Evan Caldwell.
Right. And his job is just to run a perfectly straight line across the land for a new state road. It's a very picture of, progress.
But that line, that official documented line, it immediately clashes with the land itself.
The sources describe the setting almost like a character. They say the red clay in this county, once you cut it open, it does not heal like flesh heals. It holds on to its scars.
It's a perfect way to frame it. You have this neat bureaucratic line being driven right through a piece of ground that the official county records only call, what is it, Parcel 19B unimproved.
And unimproved is the key lie right there. Because when Evan Caldwell drives his survey stake into that ground, he's basically claiming a space that the locals all know as the Cedar Rise.
Which is actually a cemetery.
A decades-old, totally unrecorded cemetery for a population the county decided a long time ago just wasn't worth documenting.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Let's meet the locals who, the second they saw that survey line, they knew exactly what it meant.
These are the keepers of the unofficial record.
First up is a man named Rafe Hightower. He's the county abstractor of titles, which, for anyone who doesn't know, that's the person who knows every single legal claim, every deed, every piece of land history.
And he has this amazing quote. He says he spent half a century listening to dead men argue with each other on paper.
That says it all, doesn't it?
It really does. He knows the county's real language isn't spoken, it's filed. He even says speech could be filed, speech could be used against you. So for him, silence, paperwork, that's a form of protection.
And then, almost as his opposite, you have Addie Stribling. She's the local school teacher.
The community's conscience.
Yeah.
She's deeply critical of this whole rush to build a road.
She has this incredible insight into the idea of progress. She says, progress is a word with good manners. It just takes your chair and calls it rearranging.
That is just perfect.
Yeah.
It's not about moving forward. It's about a kind of polite institutional theft. Erasing the inconvenient history of that cemetery and just calling it infrastructure.
So Rafe and Addie, they know they have to move fast. Before the state brings in the bulldozers, they go out to Cedar Rise themselves.
And there, under the root of an old cedar tree, they find it.
This rusted mason jar. And the way Rafe handles it, it's not just an artifact, it's almost contraband. Or something holy.
The symbolism is so powerful. One of the sources calls it a throat, holding a voice that had been forced into silence. It wasn't buried to be found easily. It was buried to survive.
Sealed away because it was meant not to be opened by the people who put it there.
Exactly. It was the time capsule of a truth that had to be told.
And when they finally get it open, the papers inside are fragile through water damage, but they contain this confession.
And the signature is the real shock. The last name is McCarran.
Which is Addie's own family name, one of the most prominent families in the county.
And that's the fuse. It connects this violent history directly to the people in power today. It's not some abstract event from the past, it's familial. As one writer puts it, the county recycles names the way it recycles guilt.
The confession itself is just horrific. It details a lynching from August 1909. The victim was a man named Isaiah.
And the text makes a point of saying that's the name his mother and his preacher used for him, implying, that his killers refused to even grant him that dignity.
The motive is... it's complicated. It's partly about land. Isaiah had a paper claiming a strip of creek bottom.
But it was more than that. The confession is clear that they were enraged because Isaiah could read.
It wasn't just about getting rid of him. It was about making a statement.
That's it. They wanted the ceremony of it, the lesson. It was an act of terror.
Yeah.
And the final mandate in that jar is so direct, it's chilling. It says, do not let them move him without naming what they did. Do not let them pave over a lie and call it progress.
Wow. So once that truth is out of the jar, the whole fight shifts. Which brings us to our second section, the mechanisms of containment.
Right. How does the institution react when this buried history explodes into the present?
Well, the first line of defense is the local sheriff, Dempsey Tolliver. He knows about Cedar Rise, remembers it from when he was a kid. His first instinct isn't justice, it's containment.
Classic institutional calculus. He wants to keep the lid on the boiling pot, as he calls it, to preserve the peace.
But he knows exactly what that peace is built on.
Oh, yeah. He has a line where he says peace is often just silence when silence benefited them. His job, as he sees it at first, is just to manage the public appearance of order, no matter what's rotting underneath.
But the real decision comes from higher up, the County Board of Supervisors. They meet in executive session.
The room for decisions you don't want any witnesses for.
Exactly. And their policy is immediate. They call it quiet relocation.
There it is. The core euphemism. It sounds so respectful, so procedural. But what it means is digging up bones in the middle of the night and calling it minimal publicity.
And to make sure it all goes smoothly, they bring in the lawyer, Frank Dillard, the contractor's attorney.
And Dillard's weapon isn't a threat, it's paperwork. His goal is 100% narrative control. He's not trying to find the truth.
He's trying to protect the county's reputation.
Right, which Tolliver later calls just the picture the county wants to hang over the smell. Dillard does this by reframing everything. The confession becomes an unverified allegation. The unmarked grave becomes a compliance issue.
It's just staggering how the legal system itself becomes the weapon here. It's not just defending against the truth, it's actively trying to discredit the people who found it.
And you see that perfectly with how Dillard targets Evan Caldwell, the surveyor.
The outsider, the key witness.
First, Dillard offers him an easy way out, a transfer. When Evan refuses, he pulls out the heavy artillery.
The affidavit, Dillard's slow bullet, as the source calls it. He gives Evan a legal document to sign, asking him to state that his memories are confused due to shock.
Think about the pressure of that. They're asking him to legally nullify his own testimony, to take his own witness account and file it away as a lie. It's an attempt to turn truth into official, documented silence.
And Evan knows if he refuses, he's facing exposure. They're trying to isolate him.
Which is the same strategy they use against everyone. And it's not just legal pressure. There's the more old-fashioned kind.
Right. Hank McCarran, he's a local power broker. His approach is a little more direct than Dillard's.
No paperwork for him. He just corners Evan at the local store and gives him that warning. This county don't need a young man from Jackson stirring up dead troubles. It's a clear physical threat.
And for Addie Stribling, they go after her professionally. They suspend her from the school board. Not finding the jar, of course.
No, the official reason is for morals and stirring. They need a reason to punish her that allows them to completely ignore the real reason. If they can paint her as unstable, her story becomes unstable too.
But all that pressure, it doesn't quite work. So let's move into our third section, the fight for the record. The county goes ahead with the quiet relocation.
They do. The night work, they call it. Crews come in before dawn, moving remains into cheap pine boxes. An act of respect performed, not practiced.
And seeing this is what finally breaks Sheriff Tolliver. Evan is there too, watching the backhoe, and it just solidifies his resolve.
Tolliver realizes what he's become a part of. He makes a small stand, arrests one of McCarran's men on a minor charge, just to draw a line. But then he resigns. He refuses to be used as its excuse.
He has that devastating line about the county's priorities.
Truth is a luxury when guns are cheap.
So with Tolliver gone, the resistance has to change its strategy. Rafe and Addie realize they can't just rely on that one mason jar.
Right. It's a single point of failure. If the county gets the jar, the truth is gone.
So Rafe starts making copies. He sends them out of county to Oxford. He decentralizes the evidence so it can't be contained. It's brilliant.
And it proves to be so important because the original jar, which was lost in a creek, is eventually found by a local kid. It's damaged, but you can still read fragments. Named Isaiah. Dragged him. McCarran.
The source material says the water did not erase. It only reminded us we can't rely on one vessel.
Yeah. The truth needed more than one container. It needed witnesses.
Which brings us to the final play here. It's led by Reverend Amos Green. And his strategy is to shift from quiet protection to public witness, but without giving the county the fight it wants.
They know the county wants a riot, something they can dismiss as stirring. So instead, the congregation, with Addie, Evan, and Rafe, they just gather on the courthouse steps one Sunday, and they start reading names.
Not just Isaiah's name, but the names of the unnamed children and other family members found buried there. It's an act of profound dignity.
And it forces the county's hand. Tolliver is there even though he's resigned, and he refuses to make any arrests. The county is faced with a choice. Do you arrest people for naming the dead?
As the preacher says, the dead weren't afraid of death, they were afraid of erasure. And this act reverses that erasure.
And it works. This public witness brings in a civil rights lawyer from Memphis, Marion Barlow, and she gets an injunction to stop the digging, using the county's own bureaucratic language against them. She calls their procedures.
Potential irregularities.
The euphemisms stop working once you shine a spotlight on them.
So after all of this, what's the final outcome?
Well, the road still gets built. As Addie predicted, progress finds a way to rearrange the chairs. But it's built with a slight bend in it to go around the cedar rise.
And the site is marked now, with a sign that says, Historic Burial Ground.
And the final compromise is on the new headstone in the county cemetery. It reads, Isaiah Turner and other persons, reinterred here.
So it names him, but it omits the crime. No lynching, no murder.
It's not full justice. But the sources are clear. It is more than the county wanted to give.
And the record itself is preserved. Evan files his full affidavit out of town. Rafe's last act is to send the remaining copies out of county. The truth survives because they multiplied it.
So what does this whole deep dive really teach us? I mean, for me, it's that the institution's power came from isolation, from trying to pick off Evan, Addie, and Rafe one by one, and calling the silence they created peace.
And the truth was saved through multiplication, through copies, witnesses, and refusing to play the county's game of spectacle. They chose undeniable fact over a loud confrontation.
And that final image of the water-damaged paper from the creek, the analysis concludes that the water did not erase. It relocated. It just moved the truth somewhere else.
So if history, like water, only relocates, you have to ask yourself, right, what happens to the names you speak and the names you refuse to speak in your own community? What parts of your own difficult history are just relocated right now, waiting for a new road to be built to bring them back to the surface?
Something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us.